folks. I'm DaShannon Lovin, your friendly librarian, and I'm back with some book love, so let's chat. It's piled up again. I've got quite a bit going on here, and I'm not sure how long I really have to film because I have put in a full day's work. Came home, the husband fixed dinner, but I cleaned it up and cleaned up the kitchen, and he went out with the guys tonight, so hopefully that means I've got a good 3-4 hours to film. I'm just not even sure that's enough time to talk to you about all this, but I'm going to try, okay? So let me clean off the desk, and then when we come back, I'll talk to you about some of the books that I have been reading lately. I will talk to you about a little bit of my book haul. I will talk to you about like what's on the short list. I think that's what this is. Nope, those are still book haul. I might have had a bit of a book haul this time around. Some book club books. And then like some revisits. I think that's in here. Maybe this is the revisit pile where I've got quite a bit that like I talk to you about and then something comes up, like a book's being made into a movie, or I talked to you about a book but I didn't have a copy of it or whatever. So we'll do those. This is always the pile, and it doesn't look very big, but I've got a couple more I think somewhere. But this is the pile I'm always really excited about. My recent reads, the ones I want to tell you about, the ones I want to recommend or tell you maybe you don't have to keep it on your short list. You just might want to read it at some point, or you could probably bypass it. So I've got a good mix in there, I feel like, this time. And then, yeah, I think this is another book haul. I've got a lot of book haul. So maybe I will just talk to you about the books that I've read and do some updates, and then I'll break the book haul into another video. I've never done that before, and I always say I might do it, but we'll just see kind of where time takes us tonight. How's that sound? Are you ready for some book chat? Let's get started. Okay, isn't that better? So I'm gonna start off with number one, the star of the show tonight. One of my former students, she's now one of my student aides. Well, actually, I think she's my only student aide now that I think about it. So she still comes in every day during one of my classes and just helps me out with stuff and generally hangs out and we chit chat. She made me this in art, in her art class. And it is beautiful. And like, I tried taking pictures and putting it on social media, but I can't, I don't know. I can't get a great picture that does it justice. Like the heft of it is beautiful. It's just gorgeous. It is absolutely gorgeous. So I know that you would appreciate it, fellow book lovers. It has the book pages on it, and then it's kind of like shellacked, I guess. And then the flowers are also made out of book pages. It is beautiful. So, star of our show right here tonight. And this is going to be its home. I told her, you know, a lot of times students will give me something that they've made and I leave it in my classroom. But this, I'm scared to death to leave it in the classroom. Things often get tipped over there and I can't risk it. It's too fragile. It's too beautiful. And it's too perfect for my library. So this is going to be where its home is. And I'm going to work on not getting such a big pile before I start a new video with you. I don't know what it is. I get busy, and by this last time, like I think the last one I filmed was in September, pretty sure. I had filmed one in August, I think, and then I filmed one in September. And I knew that I had this other video footage that I did, like a part 2 last October with autumn reads. And I was like, I am not filming another video until I get that footage back out there and make sure that I edit it, because I keep, you know, I do keep track of like the books that I'm talking to you about and the books that I'm recommending. And I have books on there that I said that I had recommended, and I'm like, I don't see where I did that. And it was all in that footage that was just sitting out there unedited. So I just finished that this weekend, and I posted that video Sunday night, Monday morning, I think. And I do apologize that it was filmed last year. I'm just now getting it out there. I don't know. It just got past me. So I'm really excited to film tonight's and talk to you about some books that I've read. Again, I have some good 5-star reads, and then I have some just okay reads, and I have some like, hey, you might want to read this if kind of books. So I always just really like that I have that kind of a mix for you. And in the end, I assume that you're watching my videos because we are, you know, very much the same, that we just really like hearing about books, whether or not we are adding them to our to be read list or we are just listening to the chatter about the books. or just getting like exposed to different kind of books. Like I don't put every book I hear about on my to be read list, but I like to hear about them. And sometimes if I hear about a book and I keep hearing about it, then I'm like, obviously this is something that I need to read. So I'm sure you may be very much the same. And if so, I'm going to give you some really good suggestions tonight. And yeah, it is tonight. So my lighting's going to be a little weird because it's, you know, Ohio and the time change was this past weekend. So, you know, it's like 5 o'clock and completely dark. Just kidding. It's 6 o'clock and completely dark. But lighting's a little bit different. I am drinking a decaf because I didn't get a coffee this morning. It was really crazy. And I had like a half a bottle of Coke left over from yesterday. I try not to drink caffeine past a certain time. And so I was drinking that this morning, and then I had some tea that I was drinking, and I forgot, just didn't make a coffee. So this is Decaf Highlander Grog. It's from La Crema Coffee Company. It's a local coffee company here in Cincinnati, I'm pretty sure. And it's the Highland Grog Decaf. It's so, so good. I know you can get it at Jungle Gems. I'm not really sure where I bought it. It may have been there since that's, you know, we go there all the time. And it has some pumpkin spice creamer. Not the Starbucks. I don't really like the Starbucks pumpkin spice creamer that you buy in the grocery. I feel like it's got like a chemical-y taste. The one that I have is it called Delight or something like that maybe, but pumpkin spice creamer in the Highland Grog, and it's fabulous. So I'm drinking that, plus a little bit of leftover soda from dinner. So got a couple of things going on here. And it's another one of those, like, you know, we're just going to talk about books because that's what I want to do. So I am going to light a new candle. I don't think I've talked to you about this one. I bought this at the Sauerkraut Festival in Waynesville, Ohio. I hate the saying, if you know, you know. But if you know, you know. The Sauerkraut Festival at Waynesville, there is a lot of sauerkraut, but it's really not about the sauerkraut. It's an amazing local festival. Lots of artisans come from all over. It's not just like local artisans, but tons of crafters. And I do a lot of holiday shopping there. Like this year I did more than usual even. And one of the shops, I don't remember which one, had this candle, and it's called Prayer Flag. And it's by, it says Himalayan, Dharmasya Traveler 4-ounce Prayer Flag candle. There's that. I don't know. It's so beautiful. I can't describe the smell for you. There are stores that I walk into that have lots of like Peruvian woven shirts and prayer flags and, well, prayer flags, and like Himalayan salt lamps and incense. It's that kind of store. When you walk in, that smell, that's the smell. So lighting that candle, keeping it far away from my paper flowers, but putting that here for us. I talked to my students today about the fact I was trying to describe the difference in tone and mood. And please don't be judgy. Like, I am a librarian by trade, but when they shut my library down, I went back into the English classroom after being out for 20 years. But I was trying to explain the difference to them in like tone and mood. And they all have individual books that they have chosen. And then we try and apply all these English terms to it. So I was like, okay, take your book. And I want you to think about the difference in tone and mood. Sometimes they're very similar. But I said, you know, like, I try and set the tone in my classroom that when you walk in the door, I am there at the door greeting you. I'm saying good morning or good afternoon and how are you doing? And we chit chat. And I try and make sure I have the room smelling good. Like sometimes, you know, I have the mister going on, and sometimes I have an air freshener that I've put out or something. Try and make sure that it smells good for you. And a lot of times you comment that you can smell my coffee, and I have the lights down low, and I have ASMR playing, and there's usually like light music playing in the background, trying to set the tone to put you in the mood to sit down and read for a few minutes when we start class, and then to sit down at the very end of class and write for a few minutes, and it's putting you in that mood. I hope that's working for you. And I do the same thing here in my library. Like, I feel like, you know, when I get ready to start these videos, it's important to me that I've got the candle going. I've got something nice to sip while I'm talking to you. I share with you things that I think you would really enjoy if you're a book lover. and then just chat. Just sit back and relax, and let's just chat about some things that I've been reading. Lots of book news that's come across my desk in the last 2 months-ish. Things that we've talked about, let's revisit. Like, I know I've told you some things that I want to give you updates on, and let's just take a little bit of time and not rush through it. And knowing that, if it gets too long, I will cut it after talking to you about our recent reads and some of the book news, and we'll do the book haul later, because quite frankly, I've had a massive book haul lately. I've ended up in thrift stores. I've gone to a couple of new bookstores. Lots. There's just been, I don't know, somehow I've done a lot of thrifting and a lot of picking up new books. So let's just chit chat. What do you say? All right. I am starting off with my recent reads. All right. The last book that I talked to you about was my 70th read for 2022. And it was Murder at the Vicarage by Agatha Christie. If you have watched any of my videos, if you are within earshot of me at any time, you know that I am reading Agatha Christie's works chronologically with a group online. I put the link in the notes down below if you want to join us. We Zoom every 2 to 3 weeks. And the last book I talked to you about was Murder at the Vicarage. So I'll talk to you about a couple of Christie's tonight. But the first book that I want to talk to you about that I finished post Murder at the Vicarage was Taylor Jenkins Reid, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. You have probably heard of this book. If you are a book person at all, reading any genre, you've heard of Taylor Jenkins Reid, and you've probably heard of The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I feel like I might have started listening to this on audio, I'm pretty sure, and then I borrowed a copy from someone, so I don't have a copy of this book. I borrowed it from someone and then gave it back. But I loved Taylor Jenkins Reid, Daisy Jones and the Six. That one I have talked to you about, and I recommended the audio because it is a performance and it is fabulous. And I read that last summer, if I'm not mistaken. And this one I did like. I didn't love it as much as Daisy Jones and the Six, but I do give some of that. Like, I look and see, I reviewed this on September 29th. And again, if you watch me at all, you know I'm a high school English teacher, and it's a lot. And that beginning of the school year, like end of August and September, is just ridiculous. So I do give a lot of this to timing, right? So it's not the most enjoyable time for me to read. When I sit down, I instantly fall asleep. I don't get to sit down until late. So trying to read it just took longer than it should have for me, I feel like. And I didn't love it as much as Daisy Jones and the Six, and I was rating it based on that. I'm trying to see, I don't know that I rated this. I'm going to guess I probably gave it a 4 out of 5. That sounds about right to me. I was happy to read another one by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I wanted to kind of see. I do hear that if you read one of her books, you like all of her books. So I do want to continue reading her. This one for me, it just started out to feel like a lot of, like, obviously in Daisy Jones and the Six and in The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, she is basing these stories on people that we know in common culture. And there's a ton out there about that, so I don't feel like I really need to talk to you too much about that. But, you know, Elizabeth Taylor, her name often comes up with this one. But there's a lot of plot things that go in there that you're like, yes, maybe like this person might be this person, or this is loosely based on the life of. That might be going on. We'll see. I'm not sure that she admits to any of that whenever you're reading things that, like, interviews with Taylor Jenkins Reid. But Evelyn Hugo is an aging Hollywood star. She has been married 7 times. Some of those people she is in love with, some of them were just convenient at the time. Others were arrangements. And she is getting to the end of her life, and she does not have any living children or relatives that she's worried about, you know, telling the truth out there to them. So she decides to bring in this young reporter and ask her to write her biography. Like, I'm going to give you a tell-all and you can publish it, and I won't be here to reap the benefits from this. So this is all on you. And that journalist's name is Monique Grant. And she decides to do that. She's like, okay, like this isn't what I normally do. I'm usually writing like newspaper articles or magazine articles, sorry. But okay, like I'm in. And she goes and they talk, and Evelyn tells her life story to Monique. And then there are definitely some twists in the story, which is very Taylor Jenkins Reid. And that's probably, once those twists started happening, that probably drew me in a little bit more. Like I was not super into the book while it was talking about all of her lives and her husbands and all that. It was interesting. I just didn't love it. It wasn't my cup of tea. But once those twists started coming through, I'm like, this is interesting. Now, I did read this for my Staff and Friends book club. That's the other book club that I've been running for 20 plus years. I think we're probably 25 at this point. I don't know how I don't know that number, but a lot. I read it for that, and we discussed it at a meeting, and it was widely liked. A lot of people really enjoyed reading The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and they said that they would read other Taylor Jenkins Reid books too. So highly recommend it. I would probably give it a 4 out of 5 just because it's not exactly my cup of tea, but I will be reading the other Taylor Jenkins Reid's books. So, I mean, I think that says something too. Both of the books have a really heavy drama-filled backstory that you have to get through to read the story that is currently going on. And I don't dislike that. It just takes a long time to develop the story. So I think the other thing is that one of those plot devices in the end, one of those turns, one of those surprises, just hits me as being a little dishonest, and I just maybe have some aversions to dishonesty, even when it's in literature. Someone who maybe I feel like they should have been more truthful with someone. Like I have a hard time with that kind of thing. And so I think that probably plays into it a little bit too. But it's definitely a story that has those themes of love and betrayal and retribution, and then even just justice that weaves through it enough that it is masterful. And when you finish it, like you have to stop and think about it for a while. This is really a good book club book because you want to talk about it, and you want to talk about how some of the things unfolded, like how other people felt about them, or when they knew something, or just if they picked up on some of the stuff that's going on in the book. So I definitely recommend, and I have the review out there in Goodreads of The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And I would also say that I also highly recommend, once again, Taylor Jenkins Reid's Daisy Jones and the Six, and I highly recommend the audio on that one. That one for me, oh wow, I only gave that a 4 out of 5 too. Probably because her books are very long, even the audios are very long, and my attention span sometimes gets in the way. So that's probably why I gave that a 4 out of 5. But I'm surprised, like in hindsight, Daisy Jones and the Six was probably a 5-star, but I gave it a 4, so I'll stick with that. The second book that I want to talk to you about, this one I actually do have a copy of, and that would be Lori Halls Anderson's, Twisted. It's a young adult novel. It is published by Penguin, and they have a, what do you call that? An imprint, and the imprint is Speak. So that's probably, if you recognize Lori Halls Anderson's name, she is famous for the book Speak. And this one is interesting because it does have some of the same themes in here, but your main character and narrator, I'm pretty sure he does narrate it. Yep, I studied the Christmas lights. The narrator is a teenage boy. Now, I will tell you this. Speak is very heavy. It's very dark. There are a lot of triggering themes in there, so you can Google those if you want those themes revealed to you. And if you have read Speak and you know those themes, they're in this one too. However, I thought this was going to be a lighter book. Like when I first started reading it, it comes off as a lighter book, and it gets just as dark, if not darker, than Speak. And I wasn't really prepared for that. So I will say that I recommend Speak, even with all of its triggers and very serious topics. I recommend it to all of my high school students, and I always tell them that I don't hesitate to recommend that book to every high schooler. I don't care who you are. I would recommend that you read Speak because it is so truthful and honest and realistic. And even with the mature themes, I think they need to hear that story. It's such a good book. Twisted, also, I would highly recommend, but I'm going to recommend this more for like a junior or a senior. There are some descriptions of self-harm in here that are very descriptive. I think it's necessary. Well done. Again, I'm not faulting her on that at all. I'm not saying that it should be censored at all, but I am saying that more juniors and seniors probably, with the descriptions of the self-harm in here, it's a little jarring. Highly, highly recommend it. Her writing is beautiful. Her ability to put herself in the frame of mind of a high school freshman girl in Speak and a senior boy in Twisted is amazing. I mean, it's just totally believable, very realistic. We were actually just talking about her in class today because we were filling out some of our notes for the reads that they were doing, and I had a student who was reading Speak, and I said, okay, just take a look at your book, see if you can figure out if it's a standalone or if it's a series, and if you need to, you can Google it. And I had used, I think, Speak as a example and said, you know, here's an author who has a book. It's not a series, it's a standalone, but she has written multiple books for multiple different genres. And one of my kids said, you know, I just Googled it and it says that she has this book called Shout that sounds very much like Speak. She does, and I'm pretty sure I have talked to you about that book too, because I read it within the last 2 years, maybe even the last year. Shout is Lori Halls Anderson talking about her own life, her own experience. It's a memoir. It's told in free verse, and it is phenomenal, like extremely moving, very transparent about her feelings, her anger. It's so good. Now, that's another one that I would say junior or senior or above. The language in that is a lot, but again, it's all accurate. Like, it's necessary. It's honest. Highly recommend Shout. Highly recommend Twisted. Highly recommend Speak. She does have some lighthearted fiction too. I think I've talked to you about her other ones. I'll have to check on that. I'm pretty sure I did though. Prom, that's a really fun one and a funny one. So I would recommend that one. I really enjoyed that. Looks like Shout, I read September of last year, so that's been pretty current. Speak, I put the review out there in 2019, but I read that a long time ago. So let's talk a little bit more about Twisted. Twisted, it says senior years. Twisted, it is one of those covers that when I looked at it, I was like, oh, and I thought maybe it wasn't quite as serious as it is, but it is very serious. High school senior Tyler Miller used to be the kind of guy who just faded into the background, and then he does some shady vandalism over the summer between his junior and senior year, I think, gets busted for it. But it does give him quite the bad boy reputation. So now, whereas he is normally getting looked past, the most popular girl in school now is attracted to the bad boy. And she starts pursuing him, and he's like confused, like how this happens. But she starts pursuing him, but things go downhill from there. She's not in a great place. He tries to do the right thing. And every time he turns around and he's trying to do the right thing, he does not have the support of his family. He doesn't have the support of his friends. It just, things are not going well. And, oh gosh, you know, like as a high school teacher, one of the things I really, really like to do is to try and get my kids when they come in as freshmen, like to have a really good high school experience. Like I give them ideas, like here are things you might want to join. Look at these activities that we have going on. Come to homecoming. We'll have a great time. You know, volunteer at the homecoming, making the float, make memories. Like I really try and sell that high school experience is like what you make it. I know it's not always like that, but I feel like a lot of times it could be. You just have to make the decision to have a good time. And so this was like heartbreaking on another level for me too, because, you know, poor Tyler is just blow after blow after blow. And, you know, he just gets to the point where he's like, can I just get out? Like, and I hear that so much from seniors, like, I'm done here. Like, I've already had my memories, I've had my fun, and now I just want to leave. So that part's a little heartbreaking too, but I really, really like the ending of this book, how Lori Halls Anderson has Tyler make his own decisions and realize that he has more options than he thought because he can make his own options. I love that part. And I think that this will really speak to a lot of high school seniors. And so that's who I'm really recommending this to, are like more my juniors and seniors rather than my freshmen. It might be a bit much for freshmen. And like I said, those descriptions of self-harm, just be a little bit more leery on giving that to a younger reader. So Lori Halls Anderson's Twisted, highly recommend it. Make our little stack starting right there. How's that? Now, I do still have a couple of Lori Halls Anderson books that I want to read. I have them on my shelf and I've just not had time to read them. And I'm pretty sure I've told you about these two. The Impossible Knife of Memory, I don't have a cover for this, so there it is. The Impossible Knife of Memory, which, I mean, granted, I've not heard a whole lot about that one. Catalyst, that one. Oh, there's my copy of Speak that I talked to you about. And there's my copy of Prom that I've talked to you about. There's also one called Wintergirls. I think I have a copy of that in the classroom, but maybe I don't have a copy of it here. But Lori Halls Anderson is definitely one of those authors that I want to read everything that she writes, and that I can easily recommend, speak to any student who walks through my doors. And I don't just recommend it, like I think it's required reading. I wouldn't want to have to teach it because I think that there are people who would give you a hard time about trying to read that book where there are some traumatic things going on. But I do recommend it to all my students, and I have like 10 plus copies in my classroom because if you're going to ask me for a read and you are a freshman, I'm going to tell you this is a book that every freshman should read. The next book that I read was an Agatha Christie. It actually goes by two different titles, Murder at Hazelmoor and the Sittaford Mystery. Yeah, the Sittaford Mystery. And I gave this a 3 out of 5. This isn't my favorite Agatha Christie. This was published in 1931. You know that I have like pages and pages of notes on the Agatha Christie books. And then, like I said, we meet for usually about 2 hours to talk about each of these books. So I'm not going to give you all those details. I do plan on at some point just doing a video just on the Agathas. But really I really do like all of her books. Even if it's not like a 5-star read for me, I really am enjoying watching how she has grown from that first book that we read, and now we're in 1931, and then following like what is happening in her life during the time that she's writing some of these books. And the last one that we did, which, you know, there's several between Murder at Hazelmoor and the next one, or the last one that we read. But she had published a lot of short stories in magazines and then brought them together. So the timing has been a little complicated on saying that we're going to read all of her books in chronological order. It's like published chronological order or in the order that they were written. So it has gotten a lot more complicated than I was expecting, but I really, really enjoy it. But this is the copy that I have. And that has been another super interesting thing, is trying to get copies of the books, because I definitely appreciate it more when I am reading the paper copy, the printed word, on the Agatha Christie books. And I really like to annotate. I really like to underline it, go back through, make my notes, pull out quotes, post-it notes. I mean, like, that is so much of the fun of this Agatha reading journey, has been seeing what I note and what I want to talk about, and then hearing what other people think about those things or what they want to note in the quotes that they pulled out. I just think it's been so, so fun to do that. So yes, this was a 3 out of 5 for me. So this one is number 14 that we've been discussing with the Agatha Christie and the chronological reading group. And it is a bit tricky because it does not involve our favorite sleuths. There is no Perot in here. You know, Murder at the Vicarage was our introduction to Miss Marple. There's no Miss Marple in here, but there is a sleuth. Her name is Emily Trefusis, and I'm pretty sure that this is the only time that we see her, but I really like her. I don't know why Agatha does that. There have been several characters that she has introduced that I'm like, let's continue with this one. Like, they're really interesting or witty or fun, and then nothing. Like, we don't see them again. And so I'm intrigued. Like, I wonder when she decided, like Miss Marple or Peril, that she would just continue, you know, those characters, but not these. Now, I feel like I'm reading, obviously, like a lot of extra stuff about Agatha to prepare for my meetings and the discussion, because I do head it up and make sure that, you know, that there are things that we do want to cover and talk about. But quite frankly, like, it's a great group and they come with their notes prepared too. But I feel like I heard somewhere that Agatha, like when she first wrote Perot stories, like that, the people who were publishing those specifically asked for more Perot stories, and like she would sign on for 4 more of those or whatever. And she did the same thing with Miss Marple. They were first published as short stories in the Royal magazine, I think, and that they then like commissioned her to write more stories with that particular character because people liked that character. So I don't know why we don't get more Emily Trefusis, I think is her name. But this one comes with a lot of those Agatha things, a marriage proposal and, you know, puzzling mystery, murder, mayhem, those kinds of things. Lots of beautiful sentences. One of them that I have marked here is on page 109. Meditating vexedly on these questions, Emily sighed impatiently and shifted her position. Agatha, love it. I just love it. The BBC adaptation is set with Miss Marple, but it doesn't follow the book very much. So, you know, I've talked to you about that too. Like, I'm reading the books. I'm listening to the All About Agatha podcast. I'm watching the TV adaptations. If it has a movie, I'm watching that. And all of that is enjoyable, but it's another one of those things that I'm like, I wonder why. Like, why are you even going to look at this book and say you're going to make a movie and then not follow it? I don't know. It was still good. But just not as good as some of the other Agathas. Still highly recommend 3 out of 5, Sittaford Mystery or The Myrtle at Hazelmoor, whichever title. The title differences were if it was published in the UK or if it was published in the United States. Sometimes they would change those titles. All right, the next one I got on Netgalley. I reviewed it for Netgalley and I'm so glad. It's one that came up. I've often talked to you about the YouTube group, Killing Time with Cozies, under the Beach Bum Bookworms YouTube channel. And I know that either on that channel while watching those videos or attending those chats, or in the Discord channel, I can't remember which one, in the Discord chat, somewhere someone had mentioned this book. It's called A Half-Baked Murder. It's by Emily George. And you know how like on the Cozies, sometimes it'll say like a bibliophile murder or a fixer-upper mystery series. This one is a cannabis cafe murder. So it's a new series. It's the first one in the series. And this is the strongest first in a series that I have probably ever read when it comes to cozy mysteries. You know, I'm a cozy mystery fan. This one is ridiculously good. She won me over immediately. I thought that, you know, like, I'm just so intrigued by how we can write so many cozy mysteries based around anything. Knitting, bakeries, restaurants, noodle shop cafes, anything like a book repair, a book restore, fixer-uppers, like so many different themes that we can have on these cozy mysteries. And now we have a cannabis cafe mystery. And I thought, are you kidding me? Like, how are we going to make this a cozy mystery? It's a perfect cozy mystery. The main character, young woman who has spent some time in Paris, and she's a pastry chef. She's trained. Some things happen. She comes back home to spend some time with the grandmother who's ailing. And while she's there, she decides not to just take on any kind of work. Her aunt says, hey, you know, there's a lot of bakeries around here, but you know what? There aren't any bakery kind of shops around here. Your grandma has been looking into cannabis to help relieve her, you know, medical symptoms. And there's nothing like that around here. If you find baked goods with cannabis in them, they're not good, and your pastries are. So can you do some experimenting and see? And I really think that might be something that could open up in you know, our small town and be a hit. And it is. It's a big hit. Except for, obviously, right before she gets to open her cannabis cafe, there is a murder, and she's a little too close to the murder. She was with the victim, and not in a good way. She had a bad interaction with him, so she's on the suspect list. It is so, so good. It has all those little cozy mystery things that I like: a small community, a tight-knit family, good friends. It's got the good best friend, the business that's at the center of the mystery, and then you throw in the cannabis bakery. It's just, you don't have to appreciate medical marijuana or cannabis to appreciate this cozy mystery. I'm just intrigued on how we can take any theme and like weave it into a cozy mystery. So I really loved this one. And I will continue to read this series. Now, I think that it does not get published until February. I'm looking to see, I don't see that, but I did read it as an advanced reader's copy on Netgalley. So it might, I feel like it's February is when this will actually come out. But I'm telling you, it's worth putting on your list. I read it as an ebook, but I'm sure it will come out as an audio too. But put it on your list and make sure you don't miss this new series. It is fabulous, and this is a great first in a new series. I think that Chloe is going to be a big hit, not only in the cozy mystery scene, but with her edible baked goods. It's set in California. That works. So highly recommend A Half-Baked Murder, a Cannabis Cafe murder mystery series by Emily George. I actually don't have in my notes either where I've talked to you about Netgalley, but I can't imagine that I've not talked to you about Netgalley before. I signed up with Netgalley again by listening to the Killing Time with Cozies people. I'm pretty sure they're the ones that told me about it. And at the time that I signed up, I was a high school librarian, so I was able to, apply under the librarian trademark. But even since then, I tell them like what kinds of books that I like, and they will suggest certain ones to me. And then sometimes I might have a particular title that I know is coming up, or an author that I follow, like Louise Penny. I'm pretty sure I read one of hers that way too. And I just follow particular authors and go take a look-see. And I tried one of the audios on Netgalley once. It was terrible because I'm sure it was like a pre-production. So most of the time on Netgalley, what I'm reading are ebooks. And I like reading ebooks, so that's, perfectly fine. But I tell them what I like, and they make suggestions, and I look for particular themes, genres, and authors that I'm looking for. So highly recommend Netgalley. You do not have to be a librarian. You just answer a questionnaire, and I know there is a lot of logistics that go with it, like analytics, and I don't read and review enough to, be a high-star Netgalley person, but I've never had trouble finding books that I like. I read a Gary Paulson that way. I read the Mexican Gothic author. I read one of hers that way. So they're big names. So might want to give it a shot. You can apply to get advanced reader copies in that ebook format from Netgalley. All right, the next book that I have is another Agatha Christie. It is Hercule Poirot's number 7. Captain Hastings is narrating it for us, and I listened to the audio on this one. It's still only 287 pages if you were able to get a copy of it, but this one I was unable to get a copy of it. I actually listened to the audio twice because there's an unabridged full cast version, and it has John Moffat is doing the audio on that one. And then there's another one, and I don't have it on here. I can't think of the name, but the guy who normally does Captain Hastings, why can't I think of his name, normally does his audio books. I listened to it that way too. And it was good. It was really good. Both versions were good. And so I enjoyed listening to it twice. This one takes place on the Cornish Riviera, so that's kind of fun. And I really enjoyed this one. This one went to a 4 out of 5, so a little better than my last Agatha Christie. But, there is no shame in the fact that I really, really like Hercule Poirot. I know he's difficult, but I really enjoy him. Hugh Fraser is the name of that narrator. He is often the voice of Captain Hastings on the TV adaptations and in a lot of the audio versions. And I always get a better appreciation after I listen to the All About Agatha podcast. I can't recommend that podcast enough if you're an Agatha reader. They reviewed all of the books in chronological order also, and most of them kind of match up with what we're doing. They have some specials in there. I highly recommend that podcast. Just gives me a better understanding of things that maybe I didn't pick up on, or gives me some high points, and I always make notes before I meet with my own Agatha Zoom group. And this is another Agatha Christie where there's a lot of twists and turns, and the culprit, I don't know that you're going to see it coming. So if you like to be fooled by Agatha, this is definitely one that might do some fooling. It still has a lot of Agatha Christie, classic things in there, like the fireside chat where it's the big reveal, like gather all the suspects, and Perot then starts, telling you how it's been done. There's a lot of masking that we talk about in Agatha Christie where people might not be who they appear to be. There's an intimate group of friends. Perot's justice is in there. These are all things that we've talked about as we've talked about a lot of the Agatha books. So highly recommend Peril at In-House by Agatha Christie, and the audio was beautiful. I did do some of the ebook too, but on this one, I leaned heavily on the 2 audio productions. All right, now this next one, I am currently reading, where is it? I am currently reading The Bullet That Missed. This is the 3rd one in the Thursday Murder Club series. So there is this one, and I read this back in October of 2021, and then I suggested it for my book club, and we read this in October. So then since I had already read this one, I just reviewed it, and I read the 2nd one in the series, The Man Who Died Twice, and I love this series. So I'm now currently reading The Bullet That Missed. And if you are looking for a series that you work hard all day, and you're tired, and you're mentally exhausted, and you really just want to turn on a mindless TV show at the end of the day and lay down and fall asleep on the couch, but you want to read, this is the book to pick up. Like, I want to go to bed at 9 o'clock and read for an hour alone and in the quiet. Like, it's a fun mystery. These are not cozy mysteries. I would say that The Man That Died Twice gets a little more gory than the Thursday Murder Club. The Thursday Murder Club, you start kind of dipping your toes into this world where and I already talked to you about this, so I'm not going to give you a full review, but you start dipping your toes into this retirement community. The Thursday Murder Club is a group of 5 friends, I think. 5 friends? I think it's 5. Who meet on Thursdays in the community room at their retirement village, and they try and solve like unsolved murder cases. They go over facts. One of them is a retired nurse. One of them is a retired MI6 person. I can't remember. Ibram, I think, is a retired psychologist. Ron was a union leader. So they all have these interesting lives that they have retired from, but they still crave that community and that puzzle and trying to figure something out. So it is just super, super fun. Very well done. I love the 70-something sleuths. I think that's an interesting way to do that. So this book was published, I believe, in 2020 or 2021. 2020, and then this is 2021, and then this one just came out, I believe, like a month or 2 ago. And I got all 3 of these at my public library, and these 2 came from a different library, so I'm dropping those off tomorrow, and then I'm holding on to this one, and I'm moving right along, and honestly, it's just been like a little crazy couple of weeks, so I feel like I can finish this probably by the weekend or over the weekend. I'll be ready to turn this one in too, but it's one of the things that drove me to make this video because I really need to get these back to the library. I know they're looking for them. Our library no longer does fines, but that doesn't mean that I can keep them as long as I want to, so I need to get those back in there. The Thursday Murder Club, when I was talking to you about that one last year, I started it as an audio. It's just so super easy for me to borrow books on Libby through audio because I don't keep things longer than I should because they automatically return. But it was one of those books that as I was listening to the audio, it's really well done on audio, but it is a complicated murder mystery. So I needed to get the book and finish. Sorry, that was Stella gagging. I needed to get the book, and so I listened to about half of it, and then I read the second half of it because I knew this is a book that I would really enjoy in print. And if I am reading a book in print, I slow down and appreciate it more. Like, I love audios, but I do most of my cozies on audio. But when it comes to a book like this, when I'm like, oh, this is really smart, intricate, puzzles that I need to be paying attention to these facts, right? That's this kind of book. So for the next two, The Man Who Died Twice and The Bullet That Missed, both of those, I knew I wanted to get a copy of those. They're all 5-star reads. Like Thursday Murder Club, Man Who Died Twice, The Bullet That Missed, even though I'm not done, they're all 5-star reads. A book that makes me want to go to bed an hour early and read, and I don't need to have the TV on, and I am motivated to sit down and read it, and then I do stay awake. It doesn't put me to sleep. That's a 5-star read for me. I want to savor it. I know that since COVID, well, I didn't even start these videos until COVID, so there's that. But I have addressed that in several of my book chats is any book that addresses COVID, I try and point that out to you, and these do address the COVID situation. And sometimes it really bothers me when a book does that, and then sometimes it's very natural. It's very natural in this series. It would be ridiculous to act like that it hasn't happened, and how COVID has changed us, how dealing with the pandemic has changed us. The author weaves it in there in a very natural way. I should put the correct book out there when I'm talking to you, right? It's also set in London. I love that setting for a mystery. The septuagenarians are just lovely, lovely characters. I'm not sure what made Richard Osman think to set this murder mystery in a retirement village with septuagenarians, but it works. It totally works. And in the Man Who Died Twice, at the center of this mystery are these is like the set of diamonds that we're kind of chasing through, and who has the diamonds and where they're hidden and all that. And I'm telling you, like, he doesn't dumb it down. Like, you better catch up. You better be paying attention, because he is not going to spell things out for you. There's not going to be some gather around the fire and let's gather all the victim or all of the suspects and talk it all out. Like, you've got to be paying attention. And when you get to the end, you better have paid attention, because it's going to unravel quickly, and you're going to have to remember who did what and how this person is involved. I also really like the allusions that are scattered throughout this series. TV shows, poems, movies. He does weave some culture in there, and I always really appreciate allusions. The second book has a smattering of new characters and new relationships. That's a good one. And then in the third one, it does the same thing. There are some new relationships and some new characters, even maybe a furry new character, which, again, I just love all the details in this book. So highly recommend any of Richard Osman's The Thursday Murder Club, The Man Who Died Twice, and then I will be talking to you about The Bullet That Missed in the next video, I'm sure. And I'm telling you, they're 5-star reads. I'm sure that The Bullet That Missed will also be a 5-star read. All right, next book, Wicked Autumn. Last winter, I ended up reading a book and talking to you about Fatal Winter. And I remember when I talked to you about it, I think I saw it like in one of those book magazines, like Bookmark or something like that. Or I was flipping through a magazine and I saw Fatal Winter suggested. And it's another one of those that, like, I immediately just requested on my Libby app to get the ebook or the audio book. I'm not sure which one I did, actually. And then it's another one that when I started listening to it, I'm like, like, I need this in print. I want to savor this, and it's complicated. I want to pay attention to it. I don't want to be doing laundry or doing the dishes. I want to sit down, curl up, and read this book. That was Fatal Winter. I read it last winter. And then I realized that it was actually the second in the series, that the first in the series was Wicked Autumn. So luckily, I was able to thrift this. I actually thrifted another, and I think I gave it to someone. Or, Stella, can you stop, please? You're not adding great sounds for our background there. I can't remember what I did with the other thrifted copy. I either gave it to someone or it's in my little library trade sack. I can't remember which one it is. Anywho, I found a couple of copies over the year, both paperbacks, but Wicked Autumn by G.M. Malliet, that's how I'm going to say it. I don't know if that's right or not. And it's not a cozy mystery. It's very much like the Man Who Died Twice, the Thursday Murder Club. It's a literary mystery that's super, super well done. So I love my cozy mysteries, but I really love a literary mystery that just introduces cool places and people and a mystery that keeps me on the edge until the very end. I really, really appreciate that. I will be reading this whole series. This is a 5 out of 5 for me. I'm making sure, but it is a 5 out of 5 for me. I will read all of them. And I anxiously, like I want to just, it's kind of like this, like where I plowed through all 3 within 2 months. I want to do it with this one, but this one has a lot of seasonal, I think I even printed it out. I did. So it goes like this. It's like Wicked Autumn, Fatal Winter, Pagan Spring, Demon Summer, The Haunted Season, Devil's Breath, and I can't read that last one. Oh, Prior's Wood. So I did Wicked Autumn. I already did Fatal Winter, but I will probably re-listen to that audio now that I've read the first one. And then I'm going to do Pagan Spring in spring. I'm going to do Demon Summer in summer, The Haunted Season in the fall. So I am going to space these out a little bit. So as you're starting to make your 2023 reading list, this might be one that you want to put on your list to start reading through the series. Traditional, mystery, literary mystery, so well done. I know this is also, I'm pretty sure that's why it caught my attention to start with. The little blurb that I saw in whatever magazine that I was reading mentioned the Agatha Award. And you know, once I started paying attention to Agatha, I feel like she's everywhere. And if you tell me that it's like an Agatha Christie or it won an Agatha Award, like I'm going to read it, because that must mean it is that less cozy, more literary kind of mystery. And I love it. You know, it's a beautifully designed book. It has all of those makings of a book that I like when I'm looking at a book. An interesting dedication. It has a table of contents in it. It has acknowledgments. It has a list of the cast of characters. I love that. Thank you for that. It has an epigraph. It's adorned with leaves on all of the opening pages. Like, I don't know if you can see it, like on the edge here, you can see the coloring. And if you flip it open, that's because it's like falling leaves. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, falling leaves at the beginning of every chapter. I don't know. It's beautifully designed. The chapters are titled with, you know, just perfect titles. You can also go, like I said, I did go to Malliet's website to print out the series, and there's a map that you can access there that takes you into the community of Nether Monkslip. Nether Monkslip is about 2 hours outside of London, so you still get that kind of London setting. Remember, this is not like right downtown London either. It's in a retirement community that's around London. This is in the London countryside, about 2 hours out. And we have another MI5 agent, former agent. He's now the vicar in Nether Monkslip. They know that he's something, like they're not quite sure what he is, but his MI5 agent status makes for an interesting character to help the police along. And it is very Agatha in that he is involved with the police. They have a working relationship. That's how Thursday Murder Club is too. Those septuagenarians are working closely with the local police. Like that would ever happen, but I don't care if it's not realistic. I like that little plot device. And it is very seasonal. Like Wicked Autumn, it takes place when there is a local fall festival going on. And then there's a murder at that little local fall festival. You know how many fall festivals I go to? No murders, thank goodness, because I don't think I really want that in my real life, but I really like to read about it. It just really feels like an Agatha plot line. And both of these, I think the other thing that I really like about Agatha, and I've talked about it before, is it does widen my vocabulary. It does often use words that I'm like, I think I've heard that word before, but I probably have never used it in a sentence. And this one especially has a lot of that where I marked just interesting vocabulary and lots of subtle humor. Both of these have subtle humor. These are very similar. Lots of literary allusions. And another thing that I really liked about this is that I did have my own copy, so I can annotate, underline, and mark where I did not on this. Now, I did only discuss the Thursday Murder Club with the group. I did not discuss this with the group, and that always heightens that, just how much I like it too. But I'll be honest, like, I don't think all of my group really loved this series. Like, they found it long and drawn out and too complicated. And I am used to dissecting Agatha. So I think in these kinds of books, I really like the complicated mystery. It makes me want to sit down and read it. I have a very high enjoyment of sitting down and cozying up with that kind of a book. And I remembered when I read the second book, The Fatal Winter, I remember the DCI Cotton and Awena, I think that's how you say her name, that how they are introduced in this book after I already know them in the second one. I really appreciated that. So I highly recommend it. I highly recommend that you get it in print and that you just savor it. You know, you've still got a couple more weeks of autumn. You can get this one in before you then get into Fatal Winter, which I plan to listen to the audio the second time to review it so that I'll be ready to read the Pagan Spring in the spring. So highly recommend, 5 out of 5. And the other thing is, once I read Fatal Winter, went back and read this, and then noticed that I was going to do the one in the spring, there is a new book that is either just come out or is coming out. And it says that G.M. Malliet will be writing a new entry in her Max Tudor mystery series. I don't know that I ever said that his name is Max Tudor, the former MI5, now local vicar. His name is Max Tudor. So in the new, in the Max Tudor mystery series, it's titled The Washing Away of Wrongs. And it's been 4 years since the last book that she put out in that series. I mean, I wouldn't know that. Or they. Does it say she? Yep, her. So G.M. Malliet is a she. And it also says that there's another mystery series that G.M. Malliet writes called the St. Just Mystery Series. And it came from like CozyMystery.com, I think is where I got my information that there was a new book coming out. I also have another book by G.M. Malliet called Death at the Alma Mater. Pretty sure I've shown you the cover of that one before. And that's in that St. Just Mystery Series. It says it will come out in September of 2023. So hopefully, if I stay on track and read in the spring and the summer and the fall, and then after the fall, there's 2 more there. Hopefully I can get all of those done before the next one comes out in September of 2023. It's the 8th book in the series. So I've read the first 2. I can do that. I can easily do that. So highly recommend Wicked Autumn, any of the books in the G.M. Malliet series, the Max Tudor series. The next one, I don't know why I took that one off there, because the next one that I read, I listened to on audio. It's called Small Spaces by Catherine Arden. And I have a review out there for you on Goodreads, but if you Google this book, I'm telling you, you will recognize that cover. If you're a reader, you're in book news. And I would say it's probably a middle grade supernatural novel. It came at that time of the season when I wanted to listen to something and I want things to be seasonal, and this one came up. I am glad I read it, but I didn't love it. Looking to see if I did. 3 out of 5. I think that's pretty accurate. I was really intrigued and I thought it had a great beginning. By the middle, it started slowing down, and then by the end, I was just like, let's just wrap it up. I'm done here. It's an interesting concept. There's a group of kids on a school bus. They're going on a field trip. At the field trip, some things go awry, and then those students have to try and make it back safely by themselves. There's a whole backstory going on where one of the girls runs into a strange person and rescues a book, and then all of that becomes very important to the story. It's creepy. It's well done. I enjoyed it. But by the time I got to about 3/4 through, I was like, okay, come on, let's wrap it up. I've had enough. So there's that one. That's Small Spaces by Catherine Arden. And the main character is 11-year-old Ollie. I think her name is Olivia, but they call her Ollie. So that kind of tells you like middle-ish grade. I would say maybe 12 and up, because it is kind of creepy and there's some sad backstories going on there. But, you know, a mature 11-year-old, 12 and up, and probably like up to about 9th grade 10th grade might be interested, and then, it's okay, okay? The next one, I also don't have a copy of. I don't have a lot of the copies of the books that I read or listened to here in the last couple of months, but the next one that I listened to was MC Beaton's Death of a Ghost. I have read several MC Beaton, Agatha Raisin books. I have told you about her before because I watched the series on Acorn or BritBox, pretty sure it's Acorn, and then realized that it was based on a book series, so then I went back and read some of those, listened to the audios. I really enjoy those, but this is not a Agatha Raisin. This is a Hamish, not Anne. Agatha Raisin, there you go, sorry, English teacher. But this is a Hamish Macbeth. It's number 32 in the Hamish Macbeth series, so I did not read the first 31. Super easy though, just to listen to this one. Love the audio of it. I was at a craft retreat 2 weekends ago, I think it was, and I started listening to another audio, and it just was like, man, it wasn't very seasonal, and I just didn't care for it. So I was like, man, I really want to find something seasonal. And I listened to this with, like, while I was crafting, and I think maybe driving home. I really enjoyed it. It's perfect listening, especially while, like, you're crafting or cleaning or doing laundry. Easy listen. Sergeant Hamish Macbeth is very different than Agatha Christie, but I really liked him. I really liked his sidekick, the clumsy Charlie Carson. He's adorable, just adds to the coziness of the story. Together, Macbeth and Carson go to investigate something. They find a dead body, and then the dead body disappears, and people are complaining of this ghost that's haunting, and Hamish is like, it's not a ghost. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's not a ghost. So they start investigating that, and they do solve the ghostly happenings. But audio is definitely the way to go on this one. Really enjoyed it. I will go back and listen to some other Hamish Macbeths, but I'm not like in a hurry to do it. But, you know, it was a 4 out of 5. It was better than a, you know, just casual one that I listened to. I really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed the accent of the narrator. Well done. So the last two that I have out there, I don't have a copy of the next one. It's called Death by Dumpling. Death by Dumpling. It's a noodle shop mystery. It's the first one in the series. It's by Vivian Chen. This one also comes highly recommended on the Killing Time with Cozies chat. It's probably mentioned every week. Like every week that I sit in, I feel like this one came up. And so I was like, I really do need to at least just listen to the first one. And I enjoyed it. 3 out of 5. I didn't love it, but it was a good listen. It was an easy listen. It was a quick listen. It's a very popular cozy series within the cozy community, and I am glad that I got around to it. I think that part of my 3 out of 5 rating is also that I didn't love the narrator. Like, when I first started listening, I'm like, I'm not going to be able to listen to this narrator. Like, I just don't enjoy it. But she grew on me. And I probably would be able to do more. It's a little sillier than some of the cozies that I normally listen to. And I think part of that, again, is the narrator's voice is just sillier than some of the other cozies that I read. I do like that it's got a lot of the same cozy characteristics, the good best friend, the handsome detective, who then is interacting with one of the suspects, who's the main narrator. The main narrator is working at her parents' noodle shop. It's in Ohio, so it's a locally told kind of story. And I always like that. The noodle shop is in a strip mall in Cleveland, so not Cincinnati, but still Ohio. And it does all come together like quite nicely in the end. It is a logical progression, and I enjoyed it. It's a very satisfying read. It's a very satisfying cozy. So 3 out of 5. I didn't love it, but I would continue with the series. I enjoyed it. And then the last one that I have that's in my recents that I want to tell you about is another Agatha Christie. And this one, I kind of had both of these copies. I have this one, which is 13 Clues for Miss Marple, that has some of the short stories in the 13 Problems, which is the book that I'm actually reviewing for you. But I couldn't find a copy of that. So then I got this copy of Agatha Christie, The Complete Short Stories, and all of them are in here. Now this includes more. So it includes all of the stories from the 13 Problems, but then it has like 4 other stories from other collections. And then in the 13 Clues, it only has some of the 13 problem stories, and then it has other stories too. So just a little different. But again, you know, I'm always going to recommend these vintage covers to you. I actually looked because I'm like, when this one said 13 Clues, I'm like, look at that picture. Do you think each of the 13 clues is included in there? And I know some of the I know some of the Agatha stories are in there. The blue geranium, so there's the pink geranium that turns blue. The blood-stained pavement, you see the blood spatters. The herb of death, you see a little bit of that. There's a diamond on there. Was there a diamond? Oh, yes. Yep. There was a diamond in one of them. The thumb mark of Peter is a fish. Maybe that's what the eye is. I think that makes sense. What was the companion? I don't see anything that would be the companion. And then like the Tate murder, that's not from the 13 Problems, but that's one of the short stories that's included in this. So it's just interesting. The caretaker, there's a grave there. So I'm not sure who is responsible for the cover art on this one, but it's beautiful. And then this is that new, like, I'm trying not to purchase all of the Agathas in like a set. My Agathas, right here, my Agatha, is that right? Nope. My Agathas up here have very different covers. They don't need to all match, but I did buy this one because I'm just tired of not having a copy of the Agatha when we're talking about it. I know that my discussion benefits whenever I have a paper copy that I have underlined, taken notes, highlighted, you know, put post-it notes on it. My discussion is always better when I have the printed book of the Agathas. So from here on out, I'm going to figure out how to purchase them if I don't already have a copy. But you can see up here, I have a lot of them. They're just maybe not one of the vintage ones, or, you know, they don't all match. I'm okay with that. But 13 Problems by Agatha Christie is Miss Marple short stories. They started being published, I don't know if I put it on there, 1927. In 1927, she had Miss Marple short stories published in, I think it was called the Royal Magazine. So it took a while. There's a framed story around this, which was the first time I heard that phrase, but it starts off saying that there's a group of friends at a dinner party and they decide to talk about cases that were unsolved and see if they can solve them. And so each of the short stories is a different person talking about an unsolved case, and then the dinner party tries to solve it. So I think there are 6 at one dinner party, 6 at another, or 5 at another, and then one story at the end that Miss Marple comes back to the detective that she's talking about in these and asks him to help her out because she knows who did it, but she can't prove it. So that framed story is very interesting. Really enjoyed this, this one. I enjoyed meeting Miss Marple in the vicarage, but this is probably the earlier introduction on Miss Marple. And this is another one that I could not lightly read. Like, I needed to sit down and pay attention because the short stories, things happen very quickly. You don't get as many details. There's not as much of the entertaining story around it because you don't have time to fool around. Like, you present the mystery, give some of the clues, and then somebody has to decide if they can solve it or not. So a little bit different, but I really enjoyed it. In our Zoom book club, had a very energetic conversation about this. You know what? I don't think I've been tracking this, and this is what has happened with the progression of talking about the Agatha Christies. I started noting the food that is mentioned in Agatha Christie because I think that a lot of times the food has something to do with the clues or the murder. I also decided to start tracking anytime an inheritance or a will is brought up because that's always important. Like, I don't care if it ends up being the ending motive, it's always important. So I started tracking those 2 things. They're just 2 patterns that I started noticing that come up in Agatha quite a bit. And then my favorite quote from this book is on page 113. "I feel," said Jane dreamily, "that I would like to wallow in crime this evening." So highly recommend. Lots of good characters, and I know some of these come back into play, not just Miss Marple, but some of the others. come back into play. Her nephew is in there. Her nephew is engaged to someone in this. And then the detective, I can't think of what his name is, but Agatha has a close relationship with a detective from Scotland Yard, and he comes back into play too. So highly recommend The 13 Problems by Agatha Christie. I gave it a 4 out of 5. All right, so that takes us to the books that I've read since last time I talked to you, and if I would recommend them, or if I'm highly recommending them, or if there's someone that you might want to recommend it to, but maybe it's not a book for you. And then some that I have that I want to read. So that covers it for me. So I'm just going to show you real quick the ones that we were talking about here. Twisted by Lori Halls Anderson, young adult, highly recommend, but probably to juniors and above. I am going to read her Impossible Knife of Memory. Her book Catalyst is on my to be read. Highly recommend the book Speak by Lori Halls Anderson to any high school freshman, boy or girl, or above. Lori Halls Anderson, this one is just for fun, but it's called Prom. Agatha Christie's The Murder at Hazelmoor, also known as the Sittaford Mystery, was, an okay one. Loved Thursday Murder Club. Loved Man Who Died Twice, 5 stars. Loved Wicked Autumn by G.M. Malliet, 5 stars. And then highly recommend 13 Clues for Miss Marple. They're in there. But the 13 Problems of Miss Marple. And I will read the other short stories in this, but not until they're in the right chronological place. So highly recommend. I hope you've enjoyed me talking about these. And I want to talk to you about a couple more things. Let me see where I'm at. I've been filming for almost an hour and a half. By the time I do some edits, pretty good, pretty happy with that. Let me give you a couple of updates and then we'll do the book hauls later. How's that? 2 magazines I wanted to talk to you about. Cosmopolitan and Harper's Bazaar. 2 magazines that I wanted to mention, and there's a reason that I wanted to mention them. In the Cosmo, this is the 2022 collection, issue 1. There's a part where they talk about like book reviews, so I'm not sure if you know that that's in there or not. I get this magazine and Harper's Bazaar because a former student gifted me the Vogue magazine subscription mailed to my house, and these come with that. It's all part of that Vogue subscription, so highly love that. But in the book section where it's like, hey, here's some really good recommended reads, I'm intrigued by this one called Wahala by Nikki May, because it says it's sort of like Sex in the City but set in London and with mystery and murder. So if anybody's read that, I'd love to know what you think about that. And then it is also recommending Lucy Foley's The Paris Apartment. I know I've talked to you about a Lucy Foley before. And this one says a super twisty take on the lives and crimes of the super rich. And it says that one came out in February of 22. So both of those sound intriguing to me. Going to check those out. Probably check them out from Libby and then see from there. And then in Harper's Bazaar, this is a great one. It's Tracy, what's her name? Tracy Ellis Ross. That's a great article there too. But it also has a book section that I wanted to point out to you, like up and coming recommended books. And it is recommending Blue Skinned Gods by S.J. Sindhu, Louise Erdrich, The Sentence, which my friend Stephanie says that author, she's a Pulitzer Prize winning author, and she's been reading a lot of her lately. And then it also recommends 5 Tuesdays in Winter by Lily King. So just thought you might be interested, that if you are thumbing through a magazine, or if you go and get your magazines from the library or whatever, that Bazaar and Cosmo both has a section in there for recommended reads. All right, let me put these down and let me get some of those revisits up here so that I can do that. And right before I do that, I am going to go ahead and show you. I borrowed this one from a friend. It's called West with Giraffes, a novel by Linda Rutledge. It's one of our book club's reads that are coming up, so I borrowed this from her so that I could read through it. And I've heard quite a bit about this one too. It is a novel. It sounds like it's nonfiction, but it is a novel, and that is on my short to be read list. All right, a couple of updates. Springs of Devotion, Inspiring Writings About the Meaning and Joy of Prayer. I read this. I put a Goodreads review out there, but I do not see where I talked to you in a video about it. I read it in July of 2021, and I remember talking to you about it. So why I can't find it in my videos, I don't know. But I remember telling you, like, it's good. I enjoyed it. It was 3 out of 5. I was using it for my little devotional read on the porch in the mornings of the summer, and it was just very short little devotions and prayers by famous people like St. Augustine, a Trappist monk. This one's anonymous. One's by Seneca. One's by Leo Tolstoy. So I just enjoyed the small little prayers, basically, little devotions. And I would just read, you know, a page or two on the porch whenever I first took Stella out in the mornings. So I did want to show you that just because I don't see where it's covered in my videos. And that was one of my recent reads from not this past summer, but the summer before, 2021. So putting that one out there for you. I can't remember if I talked to you about this or not, but I have not read The Darkest Minds by Alexandra Bracken. I do have a copy of it, but I did see that it was a movie. And so I searched for it on my smart TV and it came up. Don't know if I wrote down what platform that is. Spectrum On Demand, and I think I talked to you about it in one of my videos just here lately that I had watched it, and it wasn't great. It was not a great movie. I did hear that the book is much better, that Alexandra Bracken is very popular for this book, but I did not have the paperback to show you at the time, so I'm showing that to you now, and it was Spectrum On Demand. In one of my recent videos, I told you that I got a copy of the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, but I couldn't put my hands on it. So here is that copy. And this is a super good series. And I was taking this to the classroom. I think that's why I wanted to show it to you. Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants by Amber Shares. And also a copy of Girls in Pants, which is the third. Yes, the third summer of the Sisterhood. And then Amber Shares also has a much darker one called The Last Summer of You and Me. And I'm not sure if I have reviews out there for those or not. I do. I have reviews out there in Goodreads. I'm not sure if I've talked to you about that series, but definitely Teenage Girl would be the audience for these. All of these would be Teenage Girl. They are very chick lit. Girls in Pants and Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. And I think the second one is called The Second Summer of the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. They're super good. There's a lot of humor in them. You know, 3 or 4 girls that are very close friends, and they switch these magical jeans from person to person, and even though they're each built very differently, the pants are kind of magical. They help them have magical evenings. But there are several very serious situations that take place in some of these books, so I will say that they're not like happy-go-lucky, you know, what's that, Princess Diaries. I know they kind of look like it. They're not Princess Diaries. They have more serious undertones in them, but it is the story of a very close-knit group of friends who spend a lot of time together, and then the first summer that they're going to be apart, that's how they end up mailing the pants from person to person, so everybody gets a shot wearing the pants for good luck during their summer. Super good, super fun series. I don't have a lot of people that read them right now, so I'm gonna try and put a copy of Summer of the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants in my classroom and see if I can talk somebody into reading it this year. And so glad I'm filming this tonight, because tomorrow the author that I'm recommending in class is Truman Capote. I have a copy of Breakfast at Tiffany's at school, but looks like I have another copy and a copy here. I love Breakfast at Tiffany's. I love In Cold Blood, and I did pick up a copy of that. I have one for me and then one for the classroom. I thrifted those here lately. I love his books. I love his writing. And then we also usually read this short story, Truman Capote's The Thanksgiving Visitor. It's a great short story that talks about characterization, that's easy to talk about characterization. Look at this old-timey library card. The book's kind of falling apart, but still able to use it for what I'm using it. Can't really be circulated anymore. But it's a lovely old copy. And I need to cover that within the next couple of weeks. So throwing that one out there. I have a PDF on the computer that I can share in Google Classroom with the kids, but I always like to actually read from a book when I'm reading to them. So probably start this one this week. It was episode 30 that I book talked the Truman Capote books, and I just couldn't put my hands on the copies. And like I said, I have a copy for the classroom of each of those. So I want to get those in there tomorrow because I literally already have it on my slides that that's who I wanted to recommend, knowing that the Thanksgiving visitor was coming up. And I just didn't realize I didn't put the copy at school. I wanted to mention, and I think I have mentioned in a couple of videos here lately, that they are making a movie out of My Mind by Sharon Draper. This is a fabulous book, would be a great read for, I would say, 6th grade on up and through high school. I'm not sure if I've told you about it or not, so let me just quickly tell you. 11-year-old Melody is the main character. She is nonverbal. She is in a wheelchair. People think that there's nothing going on, and she is very intelligent, but because she can't communicate that to anyone, she is stuck in a classroom, like learning her letters and, you know, just crazy stuff until they give her a machine where she can communicate. And then all of a sudden they realize that she needs to be out there with her peers, and she is curious and she wants to learn and she wants to be on like the academic, like quiz bowl team. Super, super good. And they're making it into a movie. If you follow Sharon Draper online, her social media, she is showing you like being on the set and working with them. She has another book called Copper Sun. This is a historical novel. I'm not sure if I've talked to you about this one, but very much darker, but historical novel. You can see it won some awards there. Highly recommend that one. And I feel like, oh, her other series is Tears of a Tiger. It's the Hazelwood High series. I don't have a copy of that, but highly recommend that. And I think I have Goodreads reviews out there for all of her books. And I've also talked to you about Sharon Draper's book, Blended, because I thrifted that, but I put it in the classroom because I knew I'd have some people that might want to read that one. I don't have a copy here to show you, but I've talked to you about Janet Ivanovich, and she has a new book out in her Stephanie Plum series called Going Rogue. And I missed filming during October. I had sat out Anne of Green Gables because it has one of my all-time favorite October quotes. I'm so glad I live in a world with Octobers. And I had this sitting out so that I could read that to you. And then I'm filming during November. But I've talked to you and recommended Anne of Green Gables to you. Highly, highly recommend this series. And that's one I'm going to put on my 2023 summer list, is to continue reading that series. I think I've read the first 2, maybe 3. But that would be a really nice one to like just enjoy on the porch in the summer. And then I have this here, and I'm not sure why. Did I talk to you about this, but I didn't have a copy of it, and I picked up a copy? I'm not sure, but it's Flora and Ulysses. Actually, I think it's because I heard there was a movie and I wanted to look that up. So I'll look that up and talk to you about that next time. But this is one of my Newbery books. I've read it. I highly recommend it. But I think that I saw that there was a movie, and maybe that's where I sat it out, but I don't have it in my notes. So sorry about that. All right, I'm going to stop there. I've been filming for almost 2 hours. By the time I edit and cut that down, I'll probably be a little bit over an hour. I've enjoyed this time that I've been able to sit in my library and talk to you about some books that I've been reading that I would highly recommend. Got some good 5 stars in there. So I hope you add those to your to-be read list. And then just catching up with some ones that we've talked about in the past that I wanted to update you on, or be able to show you those covers. I love to be able to show you the covers. Like, I do think I would like to try and, put this out as a podcast too, in case it's something that you would like to listen to the book chats, like when you're driving. That's when I listen to podcasts the most. But in the end, I just feel like that books are so visual. I want you to be in the library with me. I want to sit among the books with you. I want to show you the covers. I want to show you the cover art on the Agathas. I want to show you some of my bookish gifts. I just think it's so much more pleasing to make the video. So I hope that you've enjoyed that too, and that the tone that I have tried to create for you has put you in the mood to want to read, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to grab my copy of The Bullet That Missed and go get ready for bed and just dive into this book and hopefully get it finished within the next few days. So thanks for spending the evening with me. It's been great chatting with you. A couple more book news things. I forgot. Celeste Ning, I've talked to you about her books before. She has a new book out called Our Missing Hearts. Colleen Hoover, which I have read a couple of her books already this year. She has a new one out. It's the second one, and it ends with us. The new one out is called It Starts With Us. I think it's her and Atlas's story, if I'm not mistaken. The New Yorker put out a list of the best books of 2022. So I've shared that on my social media. You can also just Google The New Yorker, the best of 2022 books. The GreatBritishBookClub.com shared a list of 27 fun new British cozy mysteries in October of 2022. So again, you can check my social media for that, or you can just Google it. I recently shared an article from BookBub.com. The best new paranormal romances for Halloween. I know we're past Halloween, but paranormal romance is a little intriguing to me, so I liked that article. Alexandra Bracken, the one that I told you about, is it right here? Yeah, her, The Darkest Mind, she has a new book out in April called Silver in the Bone, I think. Remember, I also reviewed her book Lore. That's the other book that I read by her, and I'm pretty sure I read that this year and reviewed that for you. Rick Riordan has a new book coming out, and Percy Jackson and the Olympians. It's called The Chalice of the Gods. Ugh, Barbara Kingsolver. You know, it's hard for me to say, like, who is my favorite author, but she is definitely in the very top of the top for me. Barbara Kingsolver is, and she has a new book out called Demon Copperhead that looks phenomenal. So I requested it from the library, but it'll be forever. So maybe that's one that hopefully somebody has and I can just borrow. That Celeste Ning book that I talked to you about before was Little Fires Everywhere and Everything I Never Told You. Those are the two books that I read and reviewed for you. Her new book is called Our Missing Hearts. I'm pretty sure I've talked to you about Rainbow Rowell. She has a new book out called Scattered Showers. Adam Silva, pretty sure I've talked to you about him. They Both Die in the End is the book that I read by him. But he wrote a prequel to that called The First to Die at the End. So that's an interesting twist. I really love the Anne Cleeves Vera Stanhope novels and the TV show. And she has a new Vera Stanhope novel out called The Rising Tide. I'm not sure that I realized that she actually wrote the Shetland series too that I love on Acorn or BritBox. I'm not sure which one is which. But that is also Anne Cleeves. And I've not read any of those, but I have watched the series. So I'd like to read one of those. I should also mention that I'm not sure I've reviewed, but Nickel and Dimed by Barbara Eckenrich. I will add a review out there for that. She recently passed, as did Julia Powell. Is that her name? Julie Powell of the Julie and Julia book. I don't know that I've reviewed that one for you, but that's a lovely book that I just was really interested in. Julia Childs, the cook. She would turn in her grave if she heard me call her a cook. Chef, food person. I don't know what her title is, but the lady who wrote the book, Julie and Julia, who had a blog where she worked through Julia Child's cookbook, that she recently passed, and young too. Like, I don't even know if she was 50. So I need to review that book for you because that is a lovely, lovely read. Ah, there it is. I'm like, I don't know why I laid this out. Here it is. I laid this out because supposedly this movie is on Disney Plus. So I'll be watching that and letting you know about that. And I think I mentioned Grady Hendrix to you in one of the last couple of videos. And I told you I had this book from him too, Paperbacks from Hell, The Twisted History of 70s and 80s Horror Fiction. Last year, I think it was, I read My Best Friend's Exorcism, which was by him. And I saw that that's actually a movie too, but I have not watched it yet. But I did want to tell you that that movie is out there. I think it's on Amazon Prime. I recently reviewed for you People We Meet on Vacation, and they are turning that into a movie. Okay, I feel like that's probably where we should stop. I also want to say that I have often recommended the local book festival, Books by the Banks in Cincinnati. It will be taking place in the next couple of weeks. And I am sad to say that I will be traveling that weekend and I will not be in town for that. So that is heartbreaking, but I am going to go see my son. So it's a small price to pay. but they have not had it since COVID. So what has that been, 3 years? 3 years, I think they've not had this. And so if you are in the Cincinnati area or you're able to travel here for the day or the weekend, look that up, Cincinnati Books by the Banks. It's a free book festival. Lots of authors, local authors, not so local authors. You can go through, you can buy their books, you can get them to sign them. They will have like round tables where people can discuss things. It's so good. It's so worth it. I am sorry to miss it, but again, small price to pay for me to be able to go see my son that weekend. Thanks for spending the evening with me. I'm happy to be your friendly librarian. All of the books that I have talked to you about tonight, I'm sure you can find at your local library or local library interlibrary loan or on Libby for free. You do not have to purchase them. I very rarely buy a book retail. I did quite a few here lately, and I'll put those in the book haul. But I very rarely buy a book retail. I am usually finding them thrift, secondhand, trading them, free little libraries, or whatever, or listening to them on audio through Libby through my public library. So hit that subscribe and like button. Let me know what you want to read, what you're reading, what you think about the books that I've talked about, what you would recommend to me. And keep in touch. Enjoy. I'll see you soon.